extent of the FETÖ terror group's infiltration in the Turkish military shocked the nation when on July 15, FETÖ elements within the military used tanks and fighter jets to try and topple the democratically elected government. They bombed the Turkish parliament, the presidency, police and intelligence headquarters, among other vital institutions and installations. At the time, it seemed that once again, Türkiye was about to have military rule.
Merkez nerede?
Genelkurmay civarından efendim. Genelkurmay civarından yoğun 22 yapısı geliyor.
Genelkurmay olmaz. Yakın kaldırmaya uzak kaldırın.
Following a call by the democratically elected President Erdogan, the Turkish people took to the streets in droves. Turkish people from all walks of life, hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, resisted the plotters.
Tamamıyla milli iradenin temsilcileri olarak da dimdik duracağız. Milletimin de dimdik duranların arkasında aynı şekilde durmasını özellikle istiyorum. Ve kendilerini havalimanlarına ve bunun yanında meydanlara özellikle davet ediyorum. Yani bizim için bu geceler inanıyorum ki gündüzler olacaktır. Kesinlikle durmak diye bir şey söz konusu değil. Ve bu özellikle içerideki planlamayı yapanlar vesaire bunlar da bunun bedelini çok ağır ödeyeceklerdir. Hiç yılmayalım. Hiçbir şeyden çekinmemize gerek yok. Çünkü bu ülkemizin şu kalkınma harekatının olduğu bir dönemde, güçlenmenin olduğu bir dönemde bu tür adımların atılması kabul edilebilir bir şey değildir.
And the coup attempt failed. The cost was high. More than 250 people lost their lives and more than 2,000 were injured. The Turkish government then initiated a thorough assessment of state institutions to usher in substantial changes to its domestic and foreign policies. It was the events of July 15, 2016 that changed Türkiye forever. Men in uniform paid by the police to defend them had turned their guns on their country.
Meclis saldırı altındaydı. Türkiye Büyük Millet Meclisi, demokrasinin kalbi, uçaklar tarafından bombalanıyordu biz geldiğimizde. Yayınlarımızı yapmaya başladık. Bu yaptığımız yerlerden birisi de hemen bu aşağısıydı. Burası ana giriş holü, şeref holü. Hemen arkası da milletvekillerinin oturumlara katıldığı genel kurulu salonu. Yani tam olarak demokrasinin kalbinin attığı yer burası. Hislerimi tarif etmem kolay değil. Aslında bizim işimiz biraz hislerinizi saklamanızı gerektiren, duygularınızı geriye atmanızı gerektiren bir iş ama Türk Silahlı Kuvvetleri'ne ait uçakların, Türk Silahlı Kuvvetleri'ne Türk halkının vergileriyle verilmiş bombalarla Türkiye'nin demokrasisinin kalbine, merkezine, beynine saldırı yapmasına anlam vermek kolay değildi. Bu bir gazeteci olarak da, bir insan olarak da bir öfkeye sebep oluyor.
But while Erkus tried to contain his feelings and focus on reporting, tens of thousands of Turkish citizens across the country poured into the streets to defend their democracy. They tried to block the tanks with their cars. Many were crushed by the coup soldiers. Some civilians even laid down in front of the tanks. Special forces fought back, as did Turkish intelligence operatives. The next day, the coup soldiers surrendered.
People behind the coup attempt wanted to create a dictatorship, an authoritarian system, wanted to destroy democracy.
I don't have any details at this point in time. I hope there will be stability and peace and continuity within Turkey.
As the coup attempt was underway, the US and various European countries remained silent. Even some Western commentators, including senior retired US officials, also appeared on TV channels cheering what they saw as the toppling of Turkiye's democratically elected president. Although the coup attempt was thwarted, Ankara's allies, including the US, were slow to comment.
I think the effort of what is considered to be a US-backed attempt of this coup in Turkey, the fact that Russia opposed it and condemned it, it showed the complexity of this relationship, because it was Turkey's NATO allies which wanted effectively regime change in order to dictate the terms of Turkey, its policies. Meanwhile, it was the main adversary, Russia, that essentially said that this was unacceptable and then took the side of Turkey.
In Europe, if I may call it like this, some political circles, some media circles, they are afraid of a modern, prosperous, successful Turkey. A Turkey which actually says no if it has to be said.
Ankara held the FETÖ terrorist organization responsible for the coup attempt and asked the US to extradite its leader, Fethullah Gülen, who'd been living a luxurious life in America. The extradition has not yet happened.
Tabii biz uzun zamandır bu kişiyi Amerika'nın buradan yurt dışı etmesini veya bize teslim etmesini istedik. Ve bizim şu anda legal görünümlü, illegal örgütler içerisinde kabul ettiğimiz FETÖ terör örgütüdür. Ve bu bizim Milli Güvenlik Kurulumuzun strateji belgesinin içerisinde artık yer almıştır. Şimdi böyle bir konumu olan bir terör örgütünün başını Amerika'nın bize teslim etmeyişi tabii ki Amerika'nın özellikle bizim toplumumuzda anlaşılmasını olumsuz istikamette etkilemektedir.
Before talking about the United States case, I have to emphasize that there are always clauses in extradition agreements saying that the so-called political crimes are mostly left outside of extradition processes. And otherwise, all ordinary crimes and terrorist crimes, these kind of crimes should be included in the extradition according to many bilateral agreements. Between United States and Turkey, there is an extradition agreement. And, other than the kind of crimes, of course, the demanding country should present enough evidences about the suspect to prove that there is a reasonable ground to try that person for certain crimes. What I understand from United States statements that they are not satisfied with the evidences presented to the United States. But I am sure that there should be enough evidences for an extradition, because in Turkish courts we have seen many trials, so it is quite visible, to anticipate that there should be enough evidences about Fethullah Gülen for an extradition. So legally speaking, I think there should be an extradition. But if there is no, then I would think that it would be rather political.
The slow US response and refusal to extradite the July 15 mastermind have led many in Türkiye to believe that the US supported the failed coup. Some American commentators say the US was simply too slow to process what exactly happened.
America was bewildered when this happened. They didn't know, was this the old secularists that were trying to take over? Was this some of people that are aligned with Islamist movements? Because this is confusing to Americans. They don't really know the difference between the Gülen movement and people that are pious supporters of the AKP, for instance. I think for Americans, and given the degree that Americans don't pay much attention to international affairs, where as a news culture, we're very focused on US news. It was almost impossible to expect that Americans would really understand what was going on. Now, the day of, or even the week of the coup, and I can tell you I was in government at the time, this was not on anybody's radar screen. Nobody was focusing attention on understanding what was going on in Turkey at that time. I don't think anybody saw it coming. I certainly don't believe conspiracy theories about the US being behind it. I've seen no evidence of that. But frankly, we were slow to respond. We should be against coups and coup attempts whenever and wherever they happen.
How would you react if someone would be bombing the French parliament, the Italian parliament, the German parliament? How would the government react? Because so many governments in Europe said Turkey overreacted. You cannot have a prolonged state of emergency.
Distrust between Ankara and Washington grew even more as the US decided to support the PKK terror group's Syrian branch, the YPG. It's the Syrian branch of the PKK, recognized as a terrorist organization by Türkiye, the EU, and the US itself. Turkiye's President Erdogan has repeatedly stated the YPG is just like Daesh, and the driving force behind Daesh is the same force that equips and directs YPG.
Hani siz teröristlerin yanında durmuyordunuz? Hani siz PKK'nın yanında değildiniz? Hani siz YPG'nin yanında değildiniz? Hani siz PYD'nin yanında değildiniz? Bal gibi de yanındasınız ve arkasındasınız. Kuzey Irak'a binlerce tır, bunlar evet tank getirdiler. Binlerce tır mühimmat getirdiler. Ve bunları teröristlere teslim ettiler. Ve bu teröristlerle evet bizim güvenlik güçlerimiz de orada savaştılar. Şimdi artık yağma yok. Eğer biz sizinle NATO'da berabersek, eğer biz sizinle dünyada, NATO'da bu birlikteliğimizi sürdüreceksek, bize samimi davranacaksınız. Teröristlerin yanında yer almayacaksınız. Eğer yer alacaksanız bizim yanımızda yer alacaksınız.
Unfortunately, America's threat perception and Turkey's threat perception never overlapped with each other in Syria. While Turkey perceived YPG, PKK, extension of PKK as the first numbered threat, United States perceived the ISIS as first numbered threat. And but leaving this aside, United States never approved or encouraged or helped Turkey in its dealing with the YPG terrorists. On the contrary, YPG was labeled as a resistant group by Washington. This was a big matter, problem between the two countries. And from that time onward, United States hostility towards Türkiye and indifference to Türkiye's sensitivities, security concerns became very evident throughout the Syrian crisis.
The Turkish government also questioned the role of many European and NATO member countries in the fight against FETÖ and PKK.
The PKK is considered to be a terrorist organization all around the EU. This has been accepted. But they have not implemented or reacted in the same way that they should with regard to any terrorist organization. For example, Daesh or ISIL, whatever you call it, could those members do what the PKK is doing in those countries?
No European Union countries made any kind of, let's say, palpable measure in order to demonstrate or in order to help Turkey's fight against FETÖ. Of course, various structures could be established, like the new education centers in the framework of Marif Vakfi in several European Union member states, but still these networks are existing and working not just within the European Union, but ultimately in the Western Balkans as well, in European Union member states.
So the EU again failed to fully understand that how to deal with the PKK threat, how to deal with a group like FETÖ, how to deal with terror in general cannot be photocopied from one country to the other.
The Western positions towards July 15, the Syria crisis, and various conflicts in the Middle East have led Ankara to the conclusion that many Western countries practice double standards in the fight against terrorism. In response, Türkiye adjusted many of its domestic security and foreign policies.
15 Temmuz aslında Türk dış ve güvenlik politikası açısından bir dönüm noktası. Şöyle ki 15 Temmuz öncesinde Türkiye hep konvansiyonel yöntemlerle, meydan okumalarla baş etmeye çalıştı. Neyi kastediyorum konvansiyonel yöntemlerden? Türk dış politikasında genellikle uluslararası örgütler ve koalisyonlar çerçevesinde dış politika sorunlarına çözüm üretmeye alışmıştı Türkiye. Çünkü bir norm var, o norm düzeni içinde BM sistemi var. BM sistemi içinde de bir sorun olduğunda BM Güvenlik Konseyi bir karar alır. Türkiye'de bu kararı uygulayan pozisyonda olurdu veya bölgesel işbirlikleri veya ittifak sistemi içinde örneğin NATO ile veya farklı uluslararası örgütlerle bu işbirliklerine girip Türkiye bir şekilde uluslararası meşruiyeti arayarak sorunlara çözümler üretmeye çalışırlar.
After the events of July 15, the government set out to identify shortcomings in its domestic security architecture. Decades of infiltration by FETÖ terrorist members into critical government institutions and roles significantly affected the country's ability to identify and neutralize terror threats.
First of all, the biggest problem with the coordination and the cooperation in between the security institutions in Turkey during those years. No, there was no unity of intelligence. There was no just one organization just controlling the entire security institutions that includes the law enforcement, the military, and so on. So in this sense, the coherence between the intelligence agencies, operational organizations did not exist or was not very effective during those years. We can put a lot of blame on FETÖ members within the security institutions those years. In this sense, the last 3 years between before the coup attempt in 2016, so the dominance or the gravity of the FETÖ in intelligence, in military and in law enforcement forces just prevented Turkey take effective steps against the terrorist groups and the conventional threats along its border in the south with Iraq and with Syria at the same time.
But that would not be the case for much longer. After Turkish authorities conducted a nationwide anti-terror cleanup operation, including public institutions, the military, police, and intelligence branches, the FETÖ terror threat to the country's national security was significantly reduced. Turkish security forces were then more capable of identifying national security threats more effectively than before. With the dispersion of FETÖ terror elements came a more suitable environment to make critical decisions about national security. This allowed Türkiye to focus on threats emerging on its southern border, allowing Türkiye to expand its regional operations against other terror groups, including Daesh, the PKK, and its Syrian wing, the YPG. In August 2016, Türkiye launched Operation Euphrates Shield in Syria. It cleared large swaths of northern Syria from Daesh terrorists. Then came Operation Olive Branch in 2018, removing the YPG from Afrin. Operation Peace Spring followed next in 2019, establishing a safe zone in northern Syria east of the Euphrates River. And finally, Operation Spring Shield was launched in 2020 after a Syrian regime airstrike martyred at least 33 Turkish soldiers in southern Idlib.
It was not something planned well ahead by Turkish authorities, but the unfolding events, especially during second Obama administration afterwards, left Turkey with no other choice but to go with its own initiative in northern part of Syria, and which is definitely, to my point of view, definitely not a violation of international law. After the American decision to leave the area and subcontract, if you will, with the terrorist organization of PKK-YPG, Turkey had no other choice but to go with its own plan in northern part of Syria.
Turkey aims to merge the areas of operation that I mentioned in a linear way, and also wants to have an operational depth in Syria in order to secure a safe zone, not only as a preventive way for its own national security, but for to prevent the further displacement of the Syrian people, and also to pave the way for the safe return of the Syrian immigrants living in Turkey. So there seems that an operational area in northern Syria is needed to complete more than one objective from Turkish perspective. So the Manbij area, for example, the Tel Rifat area, they are the two important source of the attacks against Turkish operation forces, local civilians, Syrian National Army elements over there. In this sense, we can put a blame on the PYD presence in these two towns as an imminent threat to destabilize the security environment in northern Syria.
Despite repeated calls by Türkiye, the US has not ended its support of the YPG terror group. And 8 years after the failed coup on the night of July 15, Gülen is yet to be extradited. Ankara says it wants to have allies that take its security concerns seriously. But as for the challenges it continues to face, since July 15, Türkiye has shown that its people are united against all threats at home or abroad.
Ey millet! Sen esaret ve zillet kabul eder misin? Kabul eder misin?
Mesela bu